Welcome to the Examined Life of Gaming. Today I'll be doing something a bit different and taking a look at 3 different games that only sold because of demos.
And when I say demos, I don't mean their own demos. I mean demos included in the release of the game, like on a bonus disc. I'll be covering 3 different games that arguably were only successful because they included demos of other hotly anticipated games. Yes, I did steal this format from GameSack. The question to keep in mind here is, did these games need the demos? Were they that bad or that obscure that they wouldn't have sold otherwise? Yes. Oh, wait, spoilers. First up is Tobal No. 1, a fighting game released in 1996 and packed in with a Square sampler disc, as in a sampler disc of games from the company Square, not an actual square-shaped disc. Square actually did this pretty regularly. That's actually pretty cool as an incentive, especially in the 90s when gaming news wasn't as easy to come by as it is now, but it probably had the intended side effect of selling games people might not have bought anyway. The sampler disc includes some teaser trailers for Saga Frontier, Bushido Blade, and Final Fantasy Tactics, but the creamy center is a demo for Final Fantasy VII. It showcased the FMV sequences, the pretty pre-rendered backgrounds, and the fancy 3D combat engine with fancy magic animations. And I guess the story, if you care, but I don't. To get the scoop on the finished product, we'll talk to Final Fantasy expert Jesse Wood. What do you have for us, Jesse? Clearly, he has better things to do than talk about Final Fantasy VII right now, so I'll give you my take on it. I'm not a fan of the Final Fantasy franchise, but I'm told that 7 is the most universally beloved in the series, so there's that. As for Tobal No. 1, it's my favorite fighting game of all time. The character design and art is done by Akira Toriyama, creator of Dragon Ball, and character designer of Dragon Quest, known as Dragon Warrior in the US until 2005. I think we know what his favorite fantasy monster is. Dragon Quest was originally published by Enix, who have since merged with Square to form the ultimate biumvirate of Weeaboo Lust. Tobal No. 1 has a few cool features. What makes it such a great fighting game is the smoothness. Tobal's simple graphics, without much texture mapping, means it runs at a buttery smooth 60 FPS. The frame rate makes Tobal feel fast and fluid, and also means that the slow-mo replays look awesomely smooth. This footage is captured on a PlayStation 3, which really doesn't do Tobal No. 1 justice. The PS3's emulation is subpar, the frame rate stays locked to 30, and the deinterlacing is really, really bad. Trust me, this game looks amazing, just don't play it on a PS3. Tobal's party piece is the Quest mode, a weird dungeon-crawling campaign thing where you collect items and unlock hidden characters. Sadly, Quest mode is more of a curiosity. The controls are iffy and the dungeons get maze-like very quickly. Probably thanks to the preview disc of FF7, Tobal No. 1 sold well enough to get a US release and a sequel. Tobal No. 2 didn't include a demo, and it didn't sell well enough to get released outside of Japan, which is unfortunate. It kept the smooth frame rate and nuanced fighting engine, and added some more textures for better graphics. Tobals 1 and 2 are great fighting games. I'd recommend the first one to almost anybody, and the second one to somebody interested in importing. Poor Hideo Kojima. He really wants to move on from Metal Gear, but he just loves money so much. Zone of the Enders was one of his first attempts to diversify, and included a demo of Metal Gear Solid 2, which was in development at the time, just in case that diversifying thing didn't pan out. Zone of the Enders was pushed hard as a Kojima game. The blurb on the front advertising the MGS2 demo is higher up than the title of the game, and Kojima's involvement is in its own bullet point on the back. The manual is reversible. If you flip it around, it becomes a mini-manual for the Metal Gear Solid 2 demo. Combine that with the position of the Metal Gear Solid 2 demo disc, and it's hard to tell there's even a game in this package, which probably suited most people who bought it just fine. Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty Trial Edition, unsurprisingly, belies the protagonist change the game is so famous for. Snake is all over this thing, on the manual, on the disc, and in the game. It's easy to see why the protagonist swap was such a surprise. The demo is basically just an early build of the first part of the Tanker chapter. The voices are still in Japanese, which is fun. It includes the massive opening brick of cutscenes and dialogue, and then a few minutes of actual gameplay. The demo was hot shit, and showed off the excellent graphics and new stealthing options of Metal Gear Solid 2. The game, on the other hand, well, it's Metal Gear Solid 2, a game equally as famous for its batshit insane story as for its protagonist switch from growling one-note Snake to whiny pretty boy Raiden. If you want my opinion, I don't give a shit. Metal Gear Solid 2 was an excellent game. The protagonist switch doesn't matter to me in the slightest. In fact, I'd rather play as Raiden and have Snake as a mentor character. It makes so much more sense from a storytelling standpoint, and it means Snake doesn't have to be the parroting retard he is in the rest of the entire series. So what about that full game included as a pack-in with the Metal Gear Solid 2 demo? Zone of the Enders is very short, very cinematic, and overall, not great. The dub work is terrible. It's cheesier than, well, than an episode of GameSack.
The target has disappeared. I can detect no sign of vital activity.
You mean that everyone is dead?
That is correct. Good work, sir.
Enders is a hack-and-slash mecha game where you pilot frames or Jehooties or something like that, but what they really are is Metal Gear Ray. Look at it. Look at it! The game's presentation is also identical to Metal Gear Solid. Same menus, same options. Even when he's not making Metal Gear Solid, Kojima is still making Metal Gear Solid. You play as Amuro Ray, basically, only younger and patheticer. Fake Amuro falls, literally falls, into the cockpit. The literal cockpit of Jehooti, which recognizes the presence of a penis and starts right up. In true Kojima form, Enders is way too cutscene heavy, with short bits of combat that plays a lot like Armored Core. Overall, Enders isn't terrible, it's just average, and it borrows everything from other games and anime. It feels so derivative, like a stereotypical mecha anime meets a stereotypical Kojima game. Any attempt at drama is squandered by the middle school script and angsty direction.
Target will be destroyed.
Destroy it? Why? They can't fight anymore.
Oh god, just shut up. Don't you start with your stupid, mournful piano. Zone of the Enders sold well enough to get an all-around improved sequel, a spin-off for the GBA, and an OVA prequel. There was also a recent HD remake, and Konami must have learned from history because it includes another Metal Gear Solid demo. Zone of the Enders HD includes a demo of Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance, which I doubt improved sales as much as Metal Gear Solid 2 did for the original game. I am willing to bet that Zone of the Enders sold so well only because of the Metal Gear Solid 2 demo. Given the number of copies of the game available without the demo disc, it's a safe bet most Enders were returned to EB Games after the demo had been surgically removed. If you want to see the pretty graphics and decent environment destruction for yourself, check Zone of the Enders out. It'll be pretty cheap and easy to find without the MGS2 demo disc. Or just skip it and go straight to the second, much better game. Better yet, pass over the whole franchise. Crackdown's incentivization was an invitation to the Halo 3 multiplayer beta. Compared to the other two games we've looked at so far, it's a pretty subtle inclusion. A small sticker advertising the beta invite is stuck to the shrink wrap, but once it's off, there's no indicator on the box. Inside is an insert telling you where to download the beta once it's ready. Halo 3 multiplayer beta. Well, yeah, that was something everybody wanted in on. If a demo is a cool sneak peek of an upcoming game, early beta access is like a secret clubhouse. There's not much else to say about Halo's multiplayer component. It's popular. I played it a lot. I don't play it anymore. Obviously, the beta is no longer available. The end. There is much to say about Crackdown, though. Crackdown is one of the only mainstream non-linear games you will ever find. Some games claim non-linearity because you can take side missions or do a few objectives in a different order, but that's a load of crap. Crackdown spits you out into a city overrun by 3 gangs and asks you to bring order to chaos. Your character is a superpowered agent who levels up his skills by using them. Punch a guy, you get stronger. Shoot a guy, you get better at shooting guys. Blow shit up, you become a better stuff blower-upper. You get the idea. As you level up your agility, you can run incredibly fast and jump absurd heights, and this opens up a huge amount of verticality to the game. You have 3 kingpins to kill, in any order you want. Tracking down and killing their underbosses makes the whole organization weaker, but you can gun straight for the top if you really want to. There are no missions and no real order to the game. The climbing is more involved than most games with so-called free climbing because it's not always laid out for you. In Assassin's Creed, you hold a button and run, and your character climbs a building more or less automatically. In Crackdown, you have to plan your route, and new avenues of approach open up as your jump height increases. I don't want to turn this into a whole review of Crackdown, so I'll stop there. In any case, the game sold well enough to get a sequel, which was made by another developer and sucked the big one. Crackdown, though, is worth a purchase if you're into open-world games, but it has its rough spots. That right there was 3 different demos, 3 different games, 6 different genres, and 3 different platforms across 3 generations. I think we've covered enough for one day. I'm sure there have been other games sold in part by the inclusion of a demo, but what I talked about here is a pretty good spread. If you know of more, feel free to join the discussion. The takeaway is that Final Fantasy VII, Metal Gear Solid 2, and Halo 3 were all guaranteed hits and part of a well-established franchise. Including demos for them was a calculated move, not really to generate hype for themselves, because frankly they didn't need any help to sell millions. I'm undecided on this. On the one hand, that's kind of shady, but on the other hand, if you have to trick people into broadening their gaming horizons, is that really such a bad thing? Games with demos in them have started dying off. I think there are a few reasons for that. First of all, even console gamers can get demos online now, so printing an extra disc just isn't a cost-effective way to promote your game anymore. The second reason is that most new games are terrible, and publishers don't want you to find out until after you shell out launch prices for them.
In any case, I hope you enjoyed this strangely unorthodox episode. See you next time.